Love seat, making that reach a lot easier.
If you're willing to trust them 100%, you can go on like the ride of your life in a scene. And I think sometimes that's a struggle for me as a performer, that sometimes I don't always trust my scene partners or myself. And then it means that I have trouble going with the flow and like discovering things in the scene and playing.
Breaking Bad.
What's your name? Genevieve.
Freeze!
It's getting darker.
I kind of left this school without graduating, and then I wasn't sure if I was going to come back, but I ended up graduating by doing classes online, just fulfilling my final credits online. I didn't ever go back and do like a final season of Comic Frenzy.
Same.
That would have been kind of cool. Yeah, it would have been kind of cool to know it's your final season while you're doing it. But you also left school suddenly.
I wonder why, right? Like getting kicked out and such.
Oh my gosh, but you're recording this, so I can't speak of such things.
Oh, I'm willing to embrace the drama.
It's like so much time passes too that then you're like, wait, why was I mad in the first place, or why was I upset in the first place? And then you have to go back and go, no, I think it's not worth being mad over.
TV and me. I love you. Please help me.
It was just fantastic.
Good.
Especially because of Valerie. She's the best. She's easily my favorite. Just how into it she'd get and dedicated to anything she was doing. She just went for it and didn't care.
I know.
And it was so hilarious because she knew how to make it flow.
It's so bad. We don't even have food. We just sit there and eat the dirt. It's so bad. So you can help with your TV. Give me your TV. TV. Oh, he doesn't understand.
I don't understand.
Oh, Ben.
Why is it so bad?
We're eating dirt. The technology we need. Please help me. Nintendo.
Like the team is usually pretty varied on spectrum of experience, and I do love that too, because they do take chances on new people. I thought they took a chance on me, and I think that like that's what makes it fresh and fun. But I always felt mentored, and I feel like by you and Liz and Jacob, you developed this deep trust and respect with your castmates.
Back in my days, this was the man voice. The new cool thing to say these days is the MC. Isn't that right?
We're ready to learn.
with the different semesters from semester to semester is sometimes it was tricky because as you know, as those that have seen Comic Frenzy shows, have been in it, have known, it switches around a lot with who's kind of leadership and how things are run. And so I started right when Trevor Hill began, and it was fine. And then just spontaneously, we just kind of found out, oh, by the way, he's gone, and we have someone new. It was a little frustrating. I mean, Ben Hopkin took over. He was very good. He was a lot of fun, and he was nice, and did a great job. But it did shift around quite a bit.
For some reason, a lot of people who did Comic Frenzy were more connected to the theater department than to just the idea of improv and comedy in general. And there was this other group on campus called Academy of Comedy that always wanted to team up with Comic Frenzy. And Comic Frenzy was just always like, we want to do our own thing. But that semester, there were a bunch of people that joined that were doing both. And it was cool. They were really good. They were really talented and really funny. And I think that was the semester where we did a show that was an Academy of Comedy and Comic Frenzy show. So I liked that. I liked that there was this kind of new direction, a new way of interacting with, other things going on campus and other people connected to different parts of the university. And it was really fun.
We had Ben, good old Ben, and his like acting, take on improv, which I thought I love Ben, and rest in peace. He was an incredible guy, but it was just so funny to see his like acting techniques from a guy who I don't think ever really was like a comedic improviser ever.
To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune.
Yeah, that Prozac hasn't kicked in yet.
What's motivating the pipes?
My vision, not that hack's.
I heard that. I feel like they're mocking me.
My vision!
They're radiating shame.
Mine.
Doubt thou the stars are fire. Doubt the sun doth move. Doubt truth to be a liar. But never doubt I love.
Were you under Ben?
Yeah, but that was just one semester, and it was fine. It just wasn't very productive. It was cool because there were a lot more people from Academy of Comedy that joined that semester, including Zach, and it was awesome in auditions because Zach is so good that Ben Hopkin just assumed that he was an alumni from Comic Frenzy and like made him the first person to like start running stuff for auditions. And I know that like those of us who were in Comic Frenzy, like I think Matt Allen was there and I can't remember who else. And they weren't, I wouldn't say people were mad, but they were like we're Comic Frenzy and we usually run auditions and then this person isn't even in Comic Frenzy. And so Zach is great and he deserves easily to have been on all of the improv teams. But I just remember that was something about Ben Hopkins, that he wasn't about Comic Frenzy as an institution. He just was like, okay, here's an improv team, let's just do stuff. And his main thing was, I'm gonna help you guys learn how to market yourself. And so we'd have big, long discussions about marketing. We had a really successful one where JR was a Mario.
I heard about Mario.
And there's a video somewhere.
We have to find that on the YouTube. Facebook.
There was also Academy of Comedy, which was going on the side, and a lot of us comic friends, we would simultaneously play in both groups. We'd be in Comic Frenzy and Academy of Comedy, and it kind of generate this, not a rivalry, but just like, it's just more comedy out there for everyone. It's like, oh, Academy of Comedy does it like this. Oh, Comic Frenzy does it like this. So it's still improv and it's still a lot of stuff. So there was actually a lot of comedy going on campus all the time. And they were always popular shows. But because there was so much comedy going around, it made it really easy. It was a very healthy ecosystem for comedy to thrive there. And there's a lot of people that continue to do comedy from that ecosystem. There's me. Joe Holt is a comedy writer down in Utah now. Trevor, Jeff Blake is still doing acting. I know that there's a few other people in Utah that have gone on and like done bigger and better things.
That being said, I will say, like, I was closer to the Academy of Comedy people than I was with the Comic Frenzy people, because it's like, all right, thanks class, see you later, peace out. There's a difference between like, hey, we're here every Wednesday for 3 hours of our own volition, and we're gonna put on our shows because we want to. There's nothing scheduled. Like, yeah, I would, those were people that I hung out with, had dinner with, like had friendships with, more so than I would say. And then the people who did both with me, I would say I had even closer relationship.
If I just think about it instinctually and just like, where does the warmest feelings come from, it was Academy of Comedy, because that was my introduction to comedy as a whole. And I just remember just like, there wasn't any frustrations, it was all fun. It wasn't like there was any obligation to do good or feeling like you needed to improve. It was just so much freedom of just like cool people doing silly stuff and having these ginormous shows that everybody loved, and we just got to be a part of that and not worry too much about quality. So that was really fun, and I just haven't had that experience in any improv since. It's fun, but it's always like there's also like, I got to do good in the show, like, or like I broke that rule last time, last scene I did. So it's kind of like you're burdened with knowledge of like, once you start to know the rules, then it's a double-edged sword, because you lose. Because in improv, it's, as you know, it's important not to be in your head, but the more rules you know, the harder that becomes until you train. And even once you're trained, it's like you are just automatically, you have more to critique yourself with, so by default, you're harder on yourself.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, I had not just Trevor, I had other people that were in charge of the group. Ben Hopkin, who passed away, unfortunately, he was great for a trimester or semester of that. So Ben's kind of approach was he wanted to do, he wanted to make it more, almost not necessarily business-like, but he wanted it to be more profitable and more accessible to everybody, which is not a bad thing. I think the downside that some people in the group that they had some issues with was, at times it became too, let's figure out how we can do flash mobs and make people have fun, and let's practice and be better as a group. And so we had some of that. And also we had an enormous group. It was huge. I think it was, how many people had 11 or 12 or 13 members at the time. And, you barely get any play time, a lot of the shows, because the groups was enormous. And so made it tricky, but I liked him. I thought he was otherwise, I really enjoyed him, and I wish he would have been around longer. I liked him more time to work with him, but sadly he was just there for, I think, 1 or 2 semesters. Then Trevor Hill came back. So,
and then with Ben is just very interpersonal, and he wants to connect deeper, and so a lot of time would be spent kind of where he would have conversations with you one-on-one, and then he'd kind of analyze you as part of like the evaluative thing that he was doing as a professor of the class, which was valuable in some ways and unnecessary in other. I don't know.
Wait! Come on! Please!
I feel like there was a much deeper love and passion for improv with Trevor Hill. He kind of started it all with his group. And so I really feel like he had this embedded desire to keep it moving and to keep it going, so that it wasn't just another piece, it was a whole.
If there was any goal, I mean, I don't know that any of us thought it would go as long as it has when we started it. Holy cow, 20 years ago, right? Wow. I don't think any of us thought it would still be going, and I know I never thought I'd still be a part of it 20 years later. But I think if someone had said, "Hey, this is going to go for 20 years, what would you hope to, see?" And I think that would be it, that it still feels connected to its roots, that it's not something totally different now, but that it's still connected to those roots, and that if Jeff or John or Ben or anybody were to come back and see it, they go, "Oh, that still feels kind of like the shows that we used to do." It obviously won't be exact, but they could go, "Oh, I feel that through line." That makes me feel good that we've been able to keep that through line, for lack of a better way of saying it.
Let's make sure that we're trying to find as many connections as we can to that. That was great. That was good.
As a director, what can I work on or do better?
As a swiper?
That's what I meant.
What did you guys think? Especially those of you that were in it. I felt like you did a good job.
Yeah.
You gave them enough to springboard off, but then they were able to develop it. So it didn't feel like you were coming in too often or not enough. What were some of your guys' thoughts?
I really liked how you, man, when I get in there as swiper, all I can think is like location-based gifts, and so like I feel like I'm hopping them around everywhere. But you were like, the director realizes this. And this happened. Like,
Yeah, that was good.
Realization gifts are really cool because we might have something cool going on right there, and it doesn't need to move to a different place. So yeah, that was good.
And by doing that, you were almost posing the question and things of that nature.
Come
I do remember vaguely that Trevor did invite me back. I remember being a part of shows, but yeah, just as an MC, and I think that's because I had graduated at that point, and so I couldn't technically be a player because I was no longer a student.
So we're going to welcome out Common Frenzy here in just a minute, but they are a very timid group. Okay, so we need to welcome them out to get into the golf clap. Just maybe a ping pong tournament now? Maybe a bit of a tennis match? Now you're at a high school game.
Trevor did a good job trying to lead it back to where it was, and from what I understand now, I mean, it was kind of a weird transition because, and I'm sure you remember this, how it almost became that Comic Frenzy was for a little while it was the second tier improv on campus, and that was just, that was heartbreaking for a bit. But from what I understand now is that it's back to being on top. It's good shows.
Trevor was great because he had been on Comic Frenzy, and he's just very talented, very comedic, very fun, and nourishing and encouraging and uplifting.
That was the right turn that I was taking too. That it felt like the scene was going one direction and then it suddenly went somewhere else. Yes. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as we justify it, which you guys did. But then we did have to take time explaining the because of that as opposed to just, well, that's because of that.
My little brother was in Comic Frenzy.
There was, I can't remember his name, but I met a guy that was running kind of a event venue space for concerts, and he was like, "Allsop, is your sister Sarah?" And then a week or two later, I ran into did something and met John Peter Lewis, and he was like, "Do you know Sarah?"
So he was roommates with Jeff, and Jeff and I were really good friends, and we also dated off and on, so I was always over at the house. So I knew all the roommates. I mean, we didn't hang out individually, JPL and I, but we hung out a lot in groups together. And I remember when he started saying, he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna do the American Idol," but he missed the auditions that were in the 48 states, and he flew all the way to Hawaii, and we all were like, "Oh man, he's missing a lot of tests, and it's really expensive. Oh, this was a real bad choice for him." And we were just all so worried. But then, just like you, I watched it all and just voted obsessively, and I was a big fan.
And then a few weeks later, or the next semester, it was, I can't remember his name, but he was also in the original Comic Frenzy. I was like, everywhere I go is somebody that my sister knows.
Aaron. So Newsweek, Steven, and Aaron will be our audience volunteers. Why is possible? Why is possible?
Why is possible? Make the ugliest face you can do, okay? Okay, ready! I'm trying to, but now all my joints are stuck. You're gonna have to figure this one out again. Doesn't say it.
I just was really excited and proud, and I just thought it was great. We're a very funny family.
It's true.
Aaron is hilarious, and we just love to get together and laugh. So I wasn't surprised, but I was very happy.
So it was really fun just to be able to tell her, especially because I remember you'd come home and be like, "Oh, what are you doing at college?" And like, "Oh, I just started this improv group."
I would never have been so bold as to say I started. I probably said I'm in.
Oh yeah.
I'm very humble.
And so I think just in general, it forces people to be creative, and I think that is one of the reasons why it drives people to be a part of something like Comic Frenzy, because it's fun. It's something that lets you be creative in a space that maybe isn't the most conducive to being creative. And so I think that's just one of the reasons. Plus, it also helps that shows were $2 a ticket, and so for $4, that's a date night right there. And I remember every show I would always go to, even after I was no longer in Comic Frenzy. It was always funny. It was always good.
Back in my day, we didn't have hand sanitizer. We used spit shine.
I started my love affair of improv in high school. I decided to try out for the Chatfield troupe at the end of my sophomore year, praying that I would be able to be part of it. I had the honor of being on the troupe junior and senior year, where I began to learn that improv was going to be a part of my life forever.
Santa is the coolest guy ever.
I know! It's so awesome that he lets us sleep outside.
When I started school at BYU, Idaho, I remember seeing a Comic Frenzy show in the Black Box Theater and knowing that I wanted to be a part of the hilarity. I auditioned my first time and as a novice did not make the troupe, but that is where I met Richard Templeman and Thomas Petrangero, who invited me to be part of improv musicals and the Academy of Comedy.
I'm so excited. So am I.
Same here.
There, I was pushed to expand my craft and sing, which was terrifying for all parties involved.
I love everything that has to do with worn out shoes. That's the news. I love worn out shoes. I just love those worn out
One of my favorite things, Colin Mockery from Whose Line, how the things he's kind of not the weakest, but that he's the least confident about are the funniest because he just goes all out even though he knows it's going to bomb, right? Valerie had this ability, like with singing, for example. She was not confident at all with that, but she was like, you know what? I know it's not going to go well, so I'm just going to go as extremely as I can. And she brought the house down. It was the singing itself. Like, she could sing, but she didn't have the ability to time it right and make it work exactly, but she just went so far into the character and so far into it that the scene was done at that point. You're like, okay, we're done. Like, you can't top that. Like, it's amazing.
At Academy of Comedy, I was able to work with amazingly talented individuals and learn so much.
Someday I'll have my love to stick to my heart. But then, when I find her, it'll be hard, because we won't be apart.
A lot of people ask me, why are you so funny? When I think about it, I tell myself, I'm funny just because I look good.
Do the power stare! I guess I'm not in Kansas anymore.
I know there's better places to go.
Oh, well, I just love being open and just being myself and being around people who are just as crazy as I am. It's great, and we can all just be friends, and there's no pressure here. Yes, for me. Take it if you want it. I love it now.
Then I auditioned 2 more times for Comic Frenzy, and like the saying goes, I guess the third time was the charm, because that is when my journey with the amazing troupe began.
Hey, you guys hiring?
Hey, oh,
Maybe we are.
Well, let me give you my resume out of my satchel.
Satchel, huh?
Yeah. Businessmen carry them.
European.
I was wondering if you young boys can help me find a tie for my husband.
If I worked here, maybe I could.
Yes, but you don't work here.
Let's keep it that way.
Oh, we need to have a race.
I'm gonna win! I'm gonna win! I just want a tie!
And go! Done!
Scene!
Oh my gosh, I loved Valerie. I loved Valerie because some of my favorite thing about Comic Frenzy was the relationships I got out of Comic Frenzy. I loved the actual shows because I thought it was super fun, but more importantly, I loved the people. And Valerie was one of those talented people that was so good in a show that you couldn't really tell if she was acting or not, or if this was just pure Valerie. And it never stopped. Like, she never was a different person outside of it. There was one time that we were hanging out really late at night, and she and I prank called Weight Watchers Helpline. Did I ever tell you? We called, there's a Weight Watchers Helpline number, and she's on the phone, and she just goes into this deep Comic Frenzy accent, and she goes, I'm staring at a cake right now. I'm gonna need some help. I'm gonna need someone to talk me down. This is what you're here for. You Weight Watchers, you're gonna support me right now. Someone needs to talk me down from this cake. And she went on for like 30 minutes. I loved working with Valerie. She was fantastic. I feel like so often in improv, people are like, the girls aren't funny. But I feel like we could have made our own troupe. Like, she was so funny.
I'm the last cowgirl. We gotta do something.
I just don't know what to do.
Isn't there an anecdote? Something?
An antidote?
Oh! Can't we tell a small story in a short story about his life? To make it better!
Oscar-winning moment, Valerie.
I know that when I tell this story about when he was climbing up the tree, he'll get better. Do you remember? Do you remember when you were climbing up that tree? Yes, you were climbing, and I was behind you, and we climbed together. He's gonna be okay. Mom, he's gonna be okay.
Her first semester was our first semester. So she was in that group with us, and she was just irreplaceably hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Like she to me, I was just like, man, she was incredible.
Yeah, no offense to anybody in the cast, including us, but she was like the funniest person in that cast. She was
including us.
I distinctly remember a sketch where we were like trying to be characters and we had a costume box. We just grabbed random pieces out of the costume box and create a character off of that. And she had this goofy one where she was just constantly shaking and she had this weird wig on. And then at like halfway through her response, she looks down at the sweater that she thought she had tied around her neck, and it was a pair of pants. She goes, "These are pants!" And
we all just
all
collapsed.
of us just collapsed.
We just-
Yeah.
Under the direction of Trevor Hill, I had the funnest 3 years working with the most talented and fun individuals, including, and I know I'm forgetting people here, Noah Milam, Benjamin Coker, Andy Timmick, Julie Timmick, J.R. Timothy, Zach Atherton, Roger Hurst, Nick Conios, Matt Allen, Brad Cottle, Kiefer McBride, Janelle Cross, Thomas Brower, Scott Mickelson, Brant Hurley, and Camilla Chapman. These were truly the best times ever. I miss my CF family like crazy. Though I am not currently in a troupe, I know that I will always return to improv. I love it and all of the happiness that it has brought to me and those involved. I am so thankful to have been able to work with all of these amazingly talented and kind-hearted and downright funny people.
Can I get a whole cow with that also? Can I get some Barbies too? Can I go skydiving with you then?
Every weekend. Your choice. Only on days that end in W.
Fine, sure.
Okay.
We kind of began to focus more on this is an art form, and we want it to be a theatrical art form. And so we put a little tagline. So it's now Comic Frenzy Improvisational Theater is what is how we've sort of branded it. And in some ways to differentiate it between some of the other comedic groups on campus as well, who do kind of what Comic Frenzy did, which is sort of that game show, improv, whose line is anyway style, which is awesome. I don't have any problems with that, but I wanted to differentiate. There was a bit of a time where our names were similar enough, where it was Comic Frenzy and Academy of Comedy, and people were like, we were synonymous in a lot of people's minds that we were the same group. And so that was also part of it as well. Like, not that there's like a feeling of competition or one group's better than say the other. It was just a matter of we need to brand ourselves better. If people think we're the same group, we need to differentiate some way. And so that's why we went. I kind of took it this direction to hopefully make it feel a little more theatrical in the way that we approach the work. I was looking at other forms of like long form improv and finding I kind of took bits from certain things and from other groups that I was looking at, and some improv I saw in Chicago, and like, oh, that's interesting, and kind of created this little hybrid structure, I guess, to help us tell stories. And so we started doing some long form improv in a slightly different way than I know Comic Frenzy had done it in the past.
There's another Richard that wasn't you. What? He was great.
Welcome to the training session. I gotta get ready to go. Of course you do. Why don't you start by doing something active like push-ups?
But she's getting big.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. The person growing on your arm, she's a little fatter than usual. You remember her. Why don't you get her to do some push-ups too?
She used to be real little.
I understand.
When I was going into college, growing up, I loved improv. I hadn't done a lot of it myself, but I had always loved things, like Whose Line Is It Anyway, and that sort of deal. And I was always just coming up with, little jokes or puns or things and little situations in my head, singing songs, doing random things like that. And so I didn't know exactly what my goal was, but I decided I was either going to get into like a cappella or I was going to get into improv. And so my first semester up in Idaho, I'm like, I'm going to audition for both. And it was probably the worst a cappella audition ever. It was really, really bad. And that did not pan out, but I did make it into Comic Frenzy. And so, yeah, I got started in there, and it was really cool, experience. Just jumping in and learning from, these people that have all that knowledge and expertise. You need to have a connection with people. The whole group mind thing. You need to connect first, and then collaborate and create, because you can sort of follow each other's lead and do that kind of stuff. So that has kind of become a core part of the way that I like to work. I'm all about first building or establishing those relationships, and making sure that you can connect with people on a genuine level, and then the work goes a lot easier from there.
There's kind of this interesting story happening behind the scenes, haha, interesting, or dramatic and traumatic interesting, probably. It's during this time, this general time period, that the off-campus group, the Humors, which is 100% based of former members of Comic Frenzy, we're doing our thing in the community, doing improv shows at schools and at work functions and events.
Hey, Sarah. Hi, Susie. Who's your friend?
Former members of Comic Frenzy start this little indie troupe, and in the past, Comic Frenzy would moonlight as the Hysterics, but the Hysterics weren't doing anything, so Brant Wadsworth, having just come off being in charge of Comic Frenzy for a little bit, he was like, well, I'm going to still continue to do improv on the side, and we'll call it the Humors. And it was the same idea as the Hysterics or Comic Frenzy. We would do, at that point, we were still practicing a lot of long form, but we would do shows kind of structured just like a Comic Frenzy show. And it was built with Carrie and Adam and Jacob, myself, I think Justin Love and Brandolin. I think that was everyone, and Brant, and we would all perform together. And in my mind, there was no difference between Comic Frenzy shows that I had been a part of in the past with all those same members and what we were doing off campus. And it was kind of exciting and thrilling and engaging. And we did shows at like Rigby High School. We did it at the Westwood Theater, Romance Theater. We did a corporate event in Idaho Falls at that hotel.
Stop it!
You have to frolic. That way the crowdedness goes away.
And if you don't like to frolic, at least you have to hop.
Just jump over people.
I'm getting tired of these sophomores. I know, man. We should totally be able to like push them because we're on the football team. I wish I had my pads on. They make me look like I'm tough.
It would only help you win a few games.
I know. Well, hey, dude, do you remember my locker combination? I always forget it. Hey, come on. Come on. Come on. Hey! Hey! Come on. Yeah! Yeah, wait, blue 42.
You're at my locker.
During all this transitional period is somewhere along the way, I got kicked out of BYU Idaho. And then even though I could still participate in theater things initially at first, it was because I participated in the musical Children of Eden that apparently our religious leaders saw that myself and other Comic Frenzy member Tommy, who was also in Children of Eden with me, cast member Tommy, so Richard and Tommy get kicked out of the play because this religious leader saw that we were in the play and said, you know what? They got their honor code suspended. They were kicked out of BYU Idaho. So we don't think they should be able to be in the play.
Richard and I were called into the theater department head's office. Like, this is random. And he's like, we just got a message from the honor code office and they said that you're not allowed to be in the show anymore. That you're being kicked out of school and that you're both being, that you've both been inappropriate and broken the honor code. And, that's how we found out. And so they replaced us in the show. We didn't really get to say goodbye to anybody in the cast. These were all of our friends,
And so that affected us working with Comic Frenzy, even though we still were at least assisting in Comic Frenzy on the sidelines. We weren't officially able to take the class as soon as we got kicked out, but we were still helping because we didn't want that institution to fail. Especially, I didn't want that institution to fail. I was trying really hard to keep it afloat, not trying to pat myself on the back or anything, but I just knew that we were going through all these transitional periods of time, and we needed that. I mean, BYU Idaho, Rexburg, Idaho, needed Comic Frenzy.
So we can talk about like maybe the contrast between how it feels to be an observer versus being directly involved. I think that could be a nice little segue there.
I think for me, going as an observer after having been a part of it, it was exciting for me. I think it could have been awkward. It could have felt awkward, like, oh, darn, I'm not a part of this anymore, and I have to, or I'm curious to what they're doing and maybe have some judgments about it. But I think my attitude in life is always like, c'est la vie. I still want to see what they're doing, even though I'm not allowed to be a part of it. And so it was exciting. I think I laughed just as hard as ever before in the audience. And to varying levels depending on the cast. Because like we have talked about earlier, that it's a turbulent time because it's like different people are instructing, different people are taking charge and leading and leaving and coming back. So it was a little iffy, but it was always funny.
Yeah, that transition for the first while was definitely a whirlwind. That's when I kind of got started myself, and going from Trevor to Ben, back and forth, different styles, long form, short form, not necessarily knowing the exact direction in a given like semester, what's going to happen. It was tricky, and I can kind of see how, from an outsider's perspective, getting a chance to kind of see all the different changes would be kind of interesting. I was in the middle of it at the time, so kind of a different experience for all of us that were, participating in that time of that. But
in that sense of let's push for the theatricality and this new structure of long form. One of the things that we really began to focus on was don't force the story to be something we think we want it to be, right? And that goes back. That's true in claymation as well as in a long form scene, right? You just let the scene go. And if a scene takes a serious turn, don't be afraid of that, right? And allow that to happen. And in the truthfulness of that, it'll probably be more fun and perhaps funnier when the other shoe falls than if we got scared. Oh, this is taking a serious turn. I better be funny, right?
Yes.
I have something that might interest you in your Instagram page.
A new passion?
Look, that's true. Unveil, sweet pea.
Come back another day.
And so we've had actually some really poignant scenes over the years. I remember there was one that was brilliantly funny, and it was working on so many levels on a comedic way. And then there was this subtle turn, and then we ended up with like someone was like holding her lover as he died, and it was like, but it was awesome, and like the audience kind of like took this breath in, and then the MC had the great sense to go, that's where this scene's going to end. So and that's the scene, and we got the biggest round of applause I think I've ever heard, because we allowed the story to go in the direction that it wanted to go, and not being afraid to be a little bit serious.
Simply like paying attention to the other person on stage with you, like giving the attention to your teammates will enable you to have good relationships. I'm putting my beanie on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, focusing on the other person, giving them what they need, and making strong assumptions, but I don't necessarily have to. I want to work smart rather than work hard, rather than being like, I've got to be funny. No worries.
So just like kind of honest.
Yeah. You gotta be sincere. You gotta be sincere. You gotta be sincere, cause if you feel it here, then you're gonna be honestly sincere. If what you feel is true, you really feel it, you make them feel it too. Them here, them here, then you're gonna be sincere. If you're really sincere, if you're really sincere, if you feel it in here, then it's gotta be right. Oh, baby. Oh, honey. Hug me. I'll suffer. All right.
That was wonderful.
That was good.
Who changed the logo?
Kiefer McBride.
When you make your coffee, first you empty the divide. Then you look for a spoon and you take a whiff of delight.